Interior Architecture and Artificial Intelligence. This is a 5-episode video course showing how to use the generative artificial intelligence models to create objects, models, and visualizations for interior architecture. At the beginning, we will test Firefly from Adobe, then we will go to Adobe Photoshop, then Adobe Illustrator, and finally, based on the concepts created with the help of AI, we will prepare the visualizations in Blender. First, let's go to Firefly in the browser and start with this model. It is a model available as a separate product and has also been built in, for example, to the aforementioned Photoshop. To communicate with AI, we will use prompts, i.e. texts or commands used as input for the language model. We start each action here by typing a command, and then the model generates an answer for us. An example prompt is this prompt visible here, and the result created after generating, i.e. a dog with a big smile in a sweater. Remember that the prompt can be long and complex, but the better we describe what we want to achieve, the better the results will be. Let's go to the free test option, and here we can enter our commands. We will start by creating the concept of arranging the interior of a children's room in a pastel palette. By typing, we can use brackets, describe objects, elements. We can write in English or another language. Even if we make a mistake, it usually has a greater impact on the whole, if only the language is able to guess what we mean. I encourage you to experiment and find your own way to type commands. After typing, click Generate and wait for the effect. The model I use is Firefly Image 2. There is also Firefly Image 1 available, but we will use the newer one. We will change a few options. We will use the 16:9 proportion, so we will change it. We will also set a slightly larger visual intensity. As for the shade, I will change it to pastel. I will change the lighting to studio. I will leave the rest of the elements as they were at the beginning. By the way, we could also add our own photo here. We can also disable something in the advanced settings, only in English. If, for example, a character appeared on this result photo, and we would like it not to be here, we could just enter to remove this character or remove any other object. I will leave these settings as they are, and I will release the whole thing again by clicking Generate. I will click again to see what the next effects will be without any changes. Maybe they will be more interesting. We will choose one of these to use in Photoshop. We can either edit here or download such a concept and open it in Adobe Photoshop. By the way, we also have an AI transparency notification, and we will open our concept to edit it in Adobe Photoshop. This is what our concept looks like in Firefly itself and opened in Adobe Photoshop. What else can we do with it? First of all, when we open our concept, an additional window appears, a strip of tools where we can quickly remove the background or mark our topic. Let's see how it works. It works fast and quite well. The model guesses what is our background and tries to remove it. Let's go back. We can also mark our theme in the guide. More or less, it is assumed that these are our main objects and not the background. In addition, we can also use all the tools available in Photoshop. The two most important windows we will use are the Layers tool and the Properties window, where we will have the effects of our actions using AI. So it's good that these two windows are available somewhere so that we can switch between them quickly. And maybe at the beginning, let's change the atmosphere a bit using curves. We will give a little more visibility to the elements to pull them out of the background and make it easier for us to work, for example, by removing something or using a stamp. So we change the light a bit and see what we could do here at the beginning. Maybe at the beginning, let's remove something. Let's say that this pillow doesn't fit here, so let's mark the whole pillow. We can mark it exactly or mark it with a small margin. I mark it with a margin. Click Generative Fill and enter the command. I enter what I want to get. I can enter either just delete, or I can enter delete and add what needs to be deleted. And in this case, I will enter delete pillow and see what the effect will be. We click on enter, generate on the button and wait for the results. As you can see, the results look quite random here. Unfortunately, this pillow has not been removed, but some other pillows have been added. If any result does not satisfy us, we can also delete the mark. Delete our layer created with artificial intelligence, mark it again, and test some other command. For example, delete an object. We can assume that the third effect is satisfactory, so we will leave it. We already know how to delete something, and in the same way we can add something. So let's go back to our background layer and add something to the wall. Again, we will use the elliptical mark and on the wall, we will mark the area in which we want our generated command to appear. In this case, I will enter the command to create a picture with a fairy tale world. I add that I want it to be kept in pastel colors so that it fits the whole. We have to change the command because other things come out than what we expect. We test our prompts, we can add, change depending on our needs. We can release a few options so that we can edit them later. And let's say that a few of them fit us, for example, this one and these two, and we would like to use them somewhere. So in this case, it's easiest if we want to use a few answers from one question, go to the layers, and create this prompt. By the way, here we see that we also have the removal of this pillow, so everything we want to delete, except. It is best to move closer to our background and connect with the background so that we no longer have the option of editing using AI, i.e. not to add more variations, but to save the background. We just have to remember to connect the right elements with each other. So I'll go back and connect the background, i.e. removing this pillow with our main background. And here I have 3 answers showing this main prompt. And let's say I'll leave the biggest one here, and I'll go to the next ones and change them to others so that I can use at least 3 of them. And that's how I got 3 elements. And of course, at this point, I can move them to other places. Remembering, of course, that the background is added here, so I will have to remove this background in a moment if I want to place such an object in another place. It will be exactly the same in this case. And we'll leave the main one here. Due to the fact that we want to leave it, we can rasterize it, move it completely down, connect it with the background, and it certainly won't disappear. And we can edit the other 2 further. First, let's set them in such a place that will be best for us. So maybe I'll put them here next to each other. I'll mark the background for them one by one and enter the recommendation to remove it, counting on the fact that this background will come off nicely here. Background removed. I'll get closer. I could actually remove this element here. Let's also see what the results look like. And here we will also mark around with any markup. We'll put it in the same way. And again, we managed to remove it. And again, we managed to remove the background. Let's mark all these elements. Let's connect them. Let's go to the markup. Let's remove what we don't need. Let's remember that we can mark objects at any time. Add some other elements with the help of a stamp or with the help of a connection, or using all the available tools. So here we use everything that is available in Photoshop itself. Sometimes it will be more convenient for us to use the AI option, and sometimes it will be easier for us to mark an element and remove it with delete, like here. So it all depends on our needs. In fact, we prepare these visualizations mainly to be able to model and create 3D visualizations later, so we don't have to take care of the accuracy here. We look at these actions as a concept, not the final thing. Of course, with the help of Control-T, we can also go into the edit and adjust the settings of the objects to the data so as to increase the space, set the perspective, or introduce additional edits needed here. As before, we can also change the light, curve, or color depending on our needs. So here is a full editable option. We can also change one object to another, again by marking and entering a command. And we have the effects. In this way, we can create many options and decide what will be our final lamp. We can view them either here or inside. At this stage, we will save the whole thing, save it as a PSD file, and export it as a JPG file. We already know how to edit an illustration or picture from the outside, but in Photoshop, we also have the option to work without any reference. For this purpose, we can go to the file, open a new one, choose 1920 by 1080. I will enter prompt 1 here, and we will work on a completely empty file. Here we can work either by marking or completely, and we will start with such a complete creation. So I will mark the rectangle in the entire area and enter the first prompt. I will enter exactly the same as the previous one and see what we get in Photoshop and how different the effects will be than in Firefly itself. Here you can see that Photoshop has focused on a larger number of toys. Let's see what Firefly look like. Here we have more attention focused on the space itself, the room, the window, more light, and here toys and zoom. And let's prepare a few such visualizations. Exactly in the same settings, we will only change the commands. Here we have more attention focused on the space itself, the room, the window, more light, and here toys and zoom. Here we have more attention focused on the space itself, the room, the window, more light, and here toys and zoom. We will choose one of the best results. Another, we need a few of them to have something to work on later. Here I will write that I would like to get visible walls. Of course, I assume that the model may not match what I want to achieve, but by trial and error, we will finally reach a consensus. You can see that more is happening here, so the effects are slowly becoming more interesting. Maybe one more. And here we see the effects of our actions. The more accurate we enter, the better we understand how to create a command, the better the effects will be. In a moment, we will write down the best results, but let's see how we can create another way of visualization, e.g. the so-called map board. In this case, we can, for example, mark the divisions using the mark and shift. We will mark only part of the windows. As for the results, the initial one did not quite come out as we marked the divisions, but the further the effects are better. And here at the last one, you can see that we actually got the results in the given windows. So we have several visualizations at the same time. Let's go again. And in this way, we quickly created several visualizations at the same time. We can delete it. And here we have three options where we have several shots of the same room. And the last thing we will test is generating an isometric view. And here we will enter a new prompt, underlining which shot we want to get. Here I will not enter any brackets. We'll see what effect it will have. And this is what the results look like, thanks to this command. As you can see, they will be useful for 3D modeling, especially if we want to model something in an isometric view. We have interesting compositions here, interesting models. It will be a convenient reference. We save the whole thing. Of course, we can also edit, change, add, but for training purposes, we only need visualizations. So we save the whole thing and see what effects we have achieved. Of course, we remember that we can also work with transformations. We can change saturation, color, everything depends on your needs. In this lesson, we created several options for visualizing concepts inside children's rooms. Each of these visualizations can serve as a concept, a sketch, a starting point. We got a lot of different furniture, elements, add-ons, and based on these interesting chairs or lamps, we will be able to create the interior in 3D later. By the way, we also have quick visualizations of where we can place the light, where to compose what object. We also have a more or less preserved scale, so these are great starting points, and we base it on our questions according to our needs. In this lesson, we learned how to create, edit, and change our own visualizations created with AI. In Photoshop and directly in Firefly.